Hi guys, let's go watching. Just before that, subscribe and enjoy yourself. A stately man was shouting at a young girl. He was sure she had poisoned his own daughter. The man was furious that he had sheltered her and given her the opportunity to learn from the best tutors, and she had paid him so cruelly. The girl said that she had not harmed Vivian. Listening to his words, the young lady remembered how she had been taken from the orphanage to an aristocratic family. She knew that it was not done out of kindness. The daughter of the head of the family was gravely ill, and the orphan was taken to replace her because Vivian was to marry the prince. The girl wanted a real family. But unfortunately for her, she was just a substitute. Her whole life was fake. No one needed her. It was very frustrating for her. The enraged man hit the girl, and she fell to the floor. He was told that the poison was found in the tea leaves the girl had brought to Vivian. He shouted at her that she would never be queen because she was a commoner. The young lady denied it. She said that her engagement had been broken off long ago, and there was no reason for her to harm her sister. But her foster father didn't believe her. He was sure that she was jealous of his own daughter because she had become the bride of Prince Ares, and so she had poisoned her. He knew she had done it because she wanted to get rid of the competition. In desperation, the girl said that if she wanted to harm Vivian, she would not have done such an obvious trick. The man was outraged by what he heard. In a rage, he held a sword to his adopted daughter's face. He shouted furiously and asked how she could do such a thing to the prince's fiancée. Their family scuffle was interrupted by a young man who announced that Prince Ares had arrived. He told his father that he would deal with the girl himself. Their father left, leaving the young people alone. Wood was relieved to see the girl in such a sorry state. She said she knew everything. It was the young man who had set her up. The girl also asked him if he knew that if his sister drank the tea, she would surely die after being cured of the terrible disease. The young man only smirked. He knew she wouldn't prove anything. He'd hated her since she'd been in their house, and was glad if she was gone. He also told the young lady that he had not acted alone. He had been ordered by the Empress to organize everything. The young heir was sure that the girl had seduced the prince and thus displeased the Empress. He threw her a vial of poison. The girl took it and quietly drank it. As she was dying, she told her foster brother that she was living her 7th life and just wanted to have a real family. But she didn't intend to play games anymore. The young lady looked at her wrist. There was the last life there. She had to live it differently than the others. Nivea had endured all the torment for a long time. Now she had to live for herself. The girl woke up in the room on a bright afternoon. She had always been reborn in her body for 8 years, and always wondered how long she would live this time, how long she would be tortured this time. Nivi knew firmly that this life would be very different. The girl saw that the number on her wrist disappeared. She realized that this was her last life. The girl just wanted to find a family and be loved and didn't understand the reason for her rebirth. The young girl just wanted to be taken away from such a family. The young girl was crying as she heard a noise from behind the door and realized Wood had locked her in. She remembered how, in her 4th life, rushing to class, she had fallen off a balcony. But there had been times when she had survived the fall. In the wake of such, Wood had always mocked her. Wood had always bullied his foster sister. From the beginning, he disliked her, but in time, he simply hated her. The girl went to the door. It was forbidden. She found a hole in the door. Wood had made it to let bees through. The girl decided to use the hole. She used the chair to get oil. She poured it through the hole and set fire to the door. The fire was not enough for her, so she took the books and threw them into the fire. Nivea told herself that the last obedient girl was already dead, and only she alone could protect herself. Agnes went out onto the balcony and started screaming frantically and begging for help. She wanted everyone to see the fire and her defenseless in the clutches of death. At the screams, the servants came running. They saw the fire and a little defenseless girl who was asking for help. The girl was not in a very good condition. They tried to put out the fire, but unfortunately their strength was not enough. Seeing the fire, Wood yelled for them to put the fire out faster. Since his playroom was nearby, he didn't care about anything else. He didn't like his half-sister, so her life was of little concern to him. The lord of the house came to the noise and managed to put out the fire with the help of his magic. The lord looked at Nivea and thought that he could not lose a gem like her. He ordered that a doctor be brought to her. The babysitter was shocked at what had happened. She asked Wood how he was feeling and if he was okay. Lord stood by and watched what was happening. He thought that Wood might have something to do with what was happening. He also didn't rule out the possibility that some of the other families might have started the fire because he had adopted the girl. But when he heard that there was a hole in the door and someone had poured oil in it, he realized it was very petty. The man shouted to the nanny and asked if she knew anything about what was going on. Philippa blanched, not knowing what to answer. She knew that Wood had made the hole in the door. Wood, ahead of her, yelled out that he was the one who made the hole. He said he didn't see it as a big deal as he was just playing around. Nivea quietly approached and timidly said that she had asked him to open the door. Everyone started whispering. They realized that Wood was the instigator of the fire. Wood was puzzled at what he was being accused of. The Lord stood and thought about the situation. He knew that everyone wanted to destroy the Agnes family. After all, they were the owners of the largest and highest quality magic stone mine, and everyone would be happy to see them decline, especially Empress Lucia's mother's family. Their main income was magic trains that consumed magic stones as fuel. In exchange for a cheap supply of stones, the Duke was going to make a deal that would make his daughter an empress. But many eyes were fixed on Nivea. The Duke knew that if the fact that the girl was of plebeian descent came to light, there would be big trouble. But all those who knew were silenced. The Duke realized that his son had something to do with the fire. He shouted at him furiously, but he only said that he had locked up the girl and had nothing to do with the fire. Wood asked Nivea who set the fire. Wood was surprised that the girl was just standing there looking at him, not trembling like she always did. In a fit of anger, he slapped her. Nivea fell down. She knew no matter what she said now, they would all believe her. Falling to her knees, the girl started apologizing to her brother and saying he didn't do anything. Wood was pleased. The master looked at everything that was going on and ordered that Nivea bring in a doctor, and he grounded Wood, saying he was on probation. The nanny told the gentleman that he had punished his son too harshly. But the man was furious at what was happening and said that if she would have supervised the children better, nothing would have happened. He also ordered Nivea to be moved to the 3rd floor. Wood was shocked, but his father said if he behaved differently, his punishment would get harsher. Winnie knew who was involved in the fire, but she knew she had to keep silent, and even though she knew the truth, she could not say anything to anyone, because the truth would make her feel very bad. Walking to her room, Nivea pondered why she wanted so much to be like, outwardly, her family. She had red eyes and blonde hair. Such features really made her stand out. She had not been comfortable with that before. The girl knew she had to be strong no matter what. Nivea knew that there was a similar sequence of events in all 8 lives. Within a year of Vivian's recovery, she was bound to die. The disease of magical reflux was incurable. However, after 12 years, when Nivian becomes an adult, a cure will be found. The girl knew that all her 20 years would be spent living with her family and finding a way to please them. Nivea knew she had to leave the family, the sooner the better. Prince Ares was involved in her departure. He didn't care about her status, he just frantically wanted to possess the girl. Nivea knew that if she wanted to leave her family, she had to do 2 things: cure her sister and find a guardian among the aristocrats. The girl already knew what kind of medicine could help her sister. She also had options for guardianship. Duke Lark Esselred was single, in his 30s, and had no heir, but the second Prince Creed would become his adopted son after Empress Estelle died. From her knowledge from her past lives, the girl knew that there was still time before the prince would appear. There would be an empty seat for a whole year, and she would be able to do whatever she set her mind to. She frantically wished she could leave her family and get rid of this attitude. Nivea sat quietly thinking about everything. Her musing was interrupted by a maid. Charlotte brought her some food. Nearly knocking Charlotte off her feet, the nanny came into the room. She was very angry and wanted the girl to go to the Duke and beg for forgiveness on her knees. The nanny was very angry and wanted the girl to apologize as she had inconvenienced the young master. He was punished for the whole day. She thought that was too harsh a punishment for Wood. The nanny was dragging Nivea by the hand. The young lady said she knew what she could tell about how the nanny was embezzling money, passing it off as child support. The nanny was shocked at what she heard, but the girl knew that every time the Duke found out about something like this, he killed the nanny. The woman was too careless to get away with it. In response to the accusations, the nanny only shouted that she was too devoted to the family to do such a thing. In her mind, the nanny wondered how the young girl could know about her machinations. The nanny shouted that Nivian had no proof of her crime. She calmly replied that she could go to the Duke and tell him everything, and he would decide whether it was true or not. Nanny was very angry at this behavior of the girl. In a fit of anger, she pushed her and she fell to her knees. What was happening was seen by the doctor. Charlotte quickly ran to Nivea and asked how she was feeling. Nivea only said that she knew that Nanny was not happy with her, since she now lived on the 3rd floor. But she was puzzled how Nanny could do that to her. She was just doing the Duke's bidding. Hearing this statement, the nurse was not in the least surprised. The doctor, seeing their scuffle, asked Philippa how she could contradict an order. The nanny said that the girl was lying and that the fact that she had pushed her was an accident. Philippa stood and thought for a long time what she should do in such a situation. Nivea interrupted her musing by saying that she would keep silent and say nothing to the Duke. The nurse left in a hurry. The doctor began to examine Nivea. Charlotte said she would escort the girl to bed. Nivea remembered that the maid had followed in her nanny's footsteps. Thinking back, she thought she could use such an ally. After examining the girl, the doctor said she had no serious injuries. After the examination, Nivea asked the doctor not to talk about what had happened with the nanny, as she would not want to be punished. The doctor agreed to keep quiet and left. Nivea told Charlotte to stay late. They talked about the situation that had happened. The girl knew she needed a maid. She would run all the important errands. Nivea told Charlotte what would happen if she went and told everything to the Duke. The girl was perplexed. She didn't know what to do. Nivea offered to work for her and she could get what Philippa enjoyed. Charlotte said affirmatively that she did not like Agnes's family very much. Everyone around her, and especially Nivea, knew that she would never be a family member. She was just a temporary substitute. After the sister was cured, the girl would be gotten rid of. Nivea asked Charlotte if she was willing to cooperate. She hesitated a little, but agreed. Nivea said that she had to go to the cook and tell him that she suspected Philippa of stealing. They talked some more about the plan, and Charlotte left. Nivea decided to get some rest. As the girl fell asleep, she had an eerie dream. A large red eye was looking down at her from above and consuming her. Just as suddenly, the half-moon protected her, leaving a mark on her wrist. The girl woke up startled. Nivea saw a sign in the form of a crescent moon on her wrist. The young person was puzzled why it appeared now. She didn't know what kind of sign it was. She had never seen it before. Charlotte came in and brought Nivea some food. The girl saw that she had not touched her food and asked if she was all right. Nivea asked the girl if she had done what she had ordered her to do. The girl said that she had done everything. Nivea wondered if anyone else could see the sign on her wrist but her. But no matter what hints she threw, Charlotte didn't see anything, only said that the girl needed new clothes since she had outgrown her dress. Nivea ate and decided to go to class. As she walked, the girl thought that if she wanted to leave her family, she needed to cure her sister of her illness. In this case, she will help her teacher, Edward Spencer, a former professor of the Academy in the Holy Empire. The Academy was only for the children of the elite who actually had abilities. Having a brilliant past, necessity forced the professor to be a tutor in Agnes's family. The professor was unhappy with this title, but he had no choice. The main reason he was appointed was because he was skilled in using a mind control spell. Using magic, he compelled Nivea to love and be loyal to Agnes's family. The professor knew it was cruel to the child, but he had to do so because he wanted to cure his brother of his reflux disease. He actively utilized the family's resources. This disease affects children who are born to mage parents. They do not live to adulthood. At one point, the power leaves the body and the child dies. Nivea entered the office and greeted the professor politely. He was puzzled how she had managed to master the knowledge of etiquette in one day. He thought she was just pretending. The teacher decided to put all thoughts aside and began to conduct the lesson. Started with a story, asked a few questions. Nivea answered all of them and even told more. The teacher was shocked that she told everything. He didn't understand how she knew some of the information if he hadn't taught her. Nivea told the teacher with the most nonchalant face that he was not required to teach her anymore. Edward Spencer was furious at her statement. He had gone through all of her notes. They were just perfect. He knew he couldn't do that without help. Edward Spencer asked the girl if she had any other teachers. But Nivea said with a chuckle that no, more teachers could reveal her origins. The man didn't understand why she was telling him that and tormented himself with doubts that the mind control magic hadn't worked. Nivea told the teacher that she knew how to cure people with magical reflux. He was furious and puzzled as to how she knew he needed such information. The girl said that only she knew such information and no one else. Her teacher had tried mind magic on her. For the past year, she had been taught to love her family and always want to protect them. But it didn't work. The girl said that she had destroyed his magic. He was amazed at what he heard. This simply could not be. Nivea looked at the dumbfounded teacher and said she wanted to make a contract with him, one that would be beneficial to everyone. The young lady told the teacher 3 basic conditions, and he agreed to make a contract with her. He had no choice. He wanted to help his own kind, and with the girl's help, he would succeed. After the contract was signed, Nivea told him what the teacher should do to cure the patient. When he heard the solution to the problem, he said that it could work. He was amazed and could not understand why he had not thought of it before. The girl remembered how, in her 6th life, it was on her teacher's recommendation that she had been sold to the king. She frantically begged him not to do it. But no one had heard her pleas. Nivea thought that maybe in this life he would change and be kinder to her. The girl left the teacher. As she walked, she remembered how she had to sacrifice her 7th life to break the spell. Now she was free to control her will. Her reflection was interrupted by Wood. He wanted revenge on her for her shenanigans. He shouted at her in rage. Nivea asked that he wanted to kill her. The boy was at a loss at her words. Nivea went to him, took his hand, and put it to her throat. She said that their father would be happy if he killed her. The boy recoiled from her. With that, he pushed Nivea towards the water trap. Tumbling in the watery pillar of water, the girl remembered, she had already had such feelings in her past death. When her carriage flipped over and she fell into the water, she realized that that death was no accident. She had been killed. Nivea couldn't let herself be killed again. To her surprise, the crescent moon on her wrist absorbed Wood's magic. She fell down. He was in a daze, for he had not expected such a thing. He had hoped to punish her so that she would know who to fear. The girl turned Wood's stolen magic against him. Nivea knew that since she wasn't a mage, she couldn't maintain the magic for long. She knew that he would not be trapped for long, and he would not die. Nivea decided to take advantage of the situation and called for help. Duke Agnes was standing at the window reading a letter from the Empress. She was very interested in Nivea and wanted to see a portrait of her kin. The Duke knew that this would be the case and prepared himself in advance. His reflection was interrupted by the arrival of the teacher. Leading the conversation with the Duke, the teacher asked if yesterday's incident could have caused her emotional shock. The Duke wondered. Edward Spencer said that her mind control had weakened. To remedy the situation, she needed to be less nervous. Their conversation was interrupted by the maid's shout. The men quickly ran to the first floor. The maid said that Wood had fallen into the water column, but he got out in time. The Duke knew that something had happened between Nivea and Wood, as she was also wet. The Duke approached Nivea and asked what had happened. The girl knew he was using mind control magic on her. Nivea knew that she needed to finish the play so that Duke would not suspect anything. She said that she had asked Wood to show her the magic, and it was all her fault. Nivea ran to her brother and asked in an affectionate voice if he was okay. Wood, in a rage, swooped down and threw her on the floor and started beating her. He screamed that the girl was a monster and he would kill her. Duke stopped him by taking him away from her. Wood screamed that the girl had stolen his magic and used it against him. He was sure that her father would punish her for all the things she had done against him. Duke was surprised because wannabe wizards are a priceless trophy. Duke started to study the magic around Nivea, but he only saw Wood's magic. Nivea said she saw the color blue when Wood started using magic, and then he got stuck in a water pillar. The Duke said it was just a mana release. He told Wood to be careful and sent Nivea to rest. Wood was furious. He shouted that it never happened and she was lying. But unfortunately, no one listened or believed him. Nivea was walking down the steps when suddenly Charlotte came to her and gave her a blanket as she was wet. Suddenly, Nivea was called by her sister. The little girl asked what Nivea was doing on the 3rd floor. The maids laughed quietly at Nivea, as Vivi's question sounded like a reproach. Nivea, in turn, apologized to her sister and said that she had not heard the question because the maids were laughing. The girl asked her what Nivea was doing on the 3rd floor. Nivea said that she was now living in one of the rooms. Vivi was overjoyed. She ran up to her sister and hugged her tightly. After the hug, Vivi asked her sister why she was wet. Charlotte wanted to tell, but Nivi said she got wet when she played with her brother. Vivi yelled that Nivi was a bad sister since they were playing, without her, and said she wanted to play with her brother too. Nivi told her that her brother was busy right now, but she could play with him later. Vivi was very angry and said she would go to her brother and ask him to play with her. She was very hurt that she had not been taken to play. Vivi ran to her brother at full speed. Nivi and Charlotte were surprised by this reaction, and they could only stare at her. Charlotte said that Vivi had done something ugly to her and added that Nivea needed to change her clothes. Nivea said she would change herself and go to the library and let her bring her father some pumpkin porridge and tea. Nivea went to the library. She wanted to learn more about the crescent moon. The girl knew nothing about its origins or the mysterious symbol. She hoped to learn something from the books that would help her understand. Wood shouted furiously, threatening to kill Nivea. The Duke only looked at him with contempt. Suddenly, Vivi came in and asked why they didn't call her when they were playing. The Duke said they were not playing, but in a fit of anger, Wood shouted at his sister. The girl cried after his words. The Duke was angry with his son for treating his own daughter like that. He punished him and told him that if he didn't stop, his punishment would be harsher. Wood apologized to his father. As he left, the Duke told the servants that no one must know what had happened. The Duke was sitting in his study when suddenly Charlotte came in and brought him a snack from Nivea. The Duke tried it and liked it very much. He thought that the girl was doing a very good job of being the perfect child. The Duke told his servant to order new outfits and accessories from a brand-name boutique. Nivea was sitting in the library when suddenly Charlotte came in and brought her some warm tea. Charlotte told her that she had brought a snack, and the gentleman had ordered her some clothes from a branded boutique as a thank you. Charlotte was very happy that the girl would have new clothes, and even from a fancy boutique. Nivea remembered how in her previous life, Vivi had always bragged about shopping and gifts from her father. She wanted to show Nivi that he loved her more. She used to say that Nivi was just a substitute, a temporary doll. Wood was very angry. He was shouting and being dishonored. At the rumbling, the babysitter came running in. She asked what was going on. The boy told her everything. She was very angry. In her thoughts, the woman made a plan to get rid of the girl. The nanny told the young master that she would do anything for him. Philippa said she did not intend to sit idly by. The nanny was preparing a revenge plan to get back at the girl. The woman believed that the girl was a nuisance to everyone, and even more so to her. She knew that if she told about her stealing, she would be killed. Nivea sat in the library all night and found nothing. The girl was frustrated because she had hoped to find out something, but to her regret, it was all in vain. She no longer knew where to look or who to ask. The girl was confused.
Charlotte came to see her, and they had a nice chat. Charlotte said she was going to bring her lots of goodies to eat. She said that the chef had made apple juice and she had to try it. The girl was in anticipation, for she had not yet tasted the juice. She wondered what it was like. Charlotte went into the kitchen. She saw Vivi's maids. They were mocking her, and they took all the apple juice. Charlotte wanted to take it to Nivi. One of the maids put something in the juice and insisted that she take the juice and take it to Nivi.
Charlotte didn't like the behavior of the maids. They talked down to her. Charlotte didn't want to break her promise to the girl, so she took the juice that was meant for Vivi from the tray. She took what she needed and left quickly, so that no one would notice her. The maids were still sitting and drinking the juice. They knew that if anyone saw them, they would feel bad. They were about to leave when one of the maids dropped a tray of food. The girl was holding her stomach and shaking violently. The others were grumbling at Charlotte for changing the juice without their noticing and poisoning the maid. They were all determined to deal with her. Charlotte came to Nivia's house. The maid brought her food and apple juice. The girl tasted it, as she had never tasted anything like it before. Nivia offered it to Charlotte, who tasted it and was very pleased. Charlotte said she had brought her some medicine for her cold. The girl poured the medicine into the juice after hearing what had happened in the kitchen between the maids. Charlotte was surprised, but then she thought that the medicine was bitter, but mixed with the juice would be fine. The maid and the butler came into their room without knocking. The maid was furious and wanted Charlotte to be punished for what she had done. She started yelling at her. Nivi and Charlotte were in shock. They didn't understand what was going on. The maid began to accuse Charlotte of taking away the juice that was meant for Vivi, as well as interfering with the medicine for an upset stomach. And the other maid got sick. The butler didn't want the Duke to know about the situation. He sent Charlotte to the laundry. Suddenly, their argument was broken by a girl's scream. Nivia fell to the floor, holding her hands on her stomach. She screamed that her stomach hurt. Everyone was puzzled. The maid was shocked because she knew that the medicine was one thing and that another maid had taken it. Charlotte rushed over to the girl. She didn't realize what was happening. But then she remembered that Nivia had poured the medicine into the glass. Charlotte swooped down, screaming at the maid. She screamed that it was her and her friend's fault her mistress was feeling so bad. The maids began to figure out what the problem was. They were having a loud discussion. To make sure there was medicine in the juice, she decided to drink the juice. She was very surprised when she realized there was medicine in it. Maki yelled that it couldn't be. Charlotte said that Maki had come here with accusations without hard evidence. Maki faltered and said that the juice must have been made from stale fruit. Charlotte asked the butler not to say anything about it to anyone. The butler said he wouldn't say anything to anyone, but he ordered Maki to fetch the doctor for Nivia, adding that such an act was unforgivable, and if she did anything like that again, she would be severely punished. Maki hurried after the doctor. Nivia told Charlotte to pour the juice into the vase. Charlotte said she wanted to do it herself and hurriedly poured the juice to cover her tracks. The butler met the presents and told them to take them to the 3rd floor. The maid saw all the presents and hurried to Vivi to tell her that they had brought her presents. Vivi was eagerly waiting for the presents and asked the maid to see when they would bring them. The maid looked and realized that the gifts were being carried by Nivia. Vivi ran out to the maid and saw that the gifts were being carried in the other direction. She realized to whom they were being carried. She ran into her room. The upset girl quickly ran away. The store representatives left the gifts and left. Charlotte said there were about 30 presents. They opened one. There was a dress. Nivia said that these gifts were prepared for Vivi and given to her. The girl said to put everything away, as she didn't need them. Charlotte saw the pin and realized it was one thing that would fit the girl. She put it aside for Nivia to take later. Charlotte went to get the girl some food. Nivia thought that she shouldn't be bothered with such petty problems. She knew she would be leaving her family in a few days. Nivia knew that she would soon meet Esselred. In all her life, the girl had never seen him once. There were only rumors about him. Because no one knew anything about him, everyone was afraid to come in contact with him. Because of his secrets, he never left the confines of the house. Prince Creed came into the limelight as Esselred's successor. But before he took over the inheritance, he faced many problems. Nivia first saw him at a ball after an unpleasant incident. At the ball, Wine was spilled on her dress. Confused, the girl ran away, to a place where no one would see her. The girl saw Creed. He kindly offered her a cloak and left her company. The girl never used it for fear of unnecessary rumors. Nivea kept that cloak and remembered his act with warmth and gratitude, since no one had ever done such a thing for her. Vivian lay in her bed while the doctor examined her. He told the Duke that she had suffered a serious emotional breakdown. The Duke was amazed that the gifts had made the girl so sad and bad. He thought it was petty to take offense over something like that. Sometimes he wondered if he had raised his children right. The Duke called the maids and began to reprimand them for what had happened, but they said that Nivea had provoked Vivian on purpose, and it wasn't the first time. The Duke couldn't believe it since the girl was under the control of magic. She couldn't harm their family. He knew that for sure. Nivea came to her father holding a small box in her hands. She wanted to tell her father for the gifts, but she was interrupted by the maid. The maid rebuked her and said that she had provoked Vivi and brought the poor girl to a serious condition. And then the nanny flew into the room like a thunderclap. She began to interrogate the girl and reproach her. She blamed her for all the situations that had happened recently. But Nivea said that she had not done anything. She was really scared because of the nanny's words. The nanny grabbed Nivea's hand and she dropped the gift. The girl timidly picked up the gift and said that she only wanted the stiletto. Nivea looked at her father and said with tears in her eyes that she was grateful to him for the gifts, but she could not accept them, and she would never ask for anything again. Looking at the girl, the Duke said that she was Princess Agnes and could want and get what she wanted, and there was no need for her to return gifts. Nivea was surprised by his words. She was puzzled as to what had influenced his decision. Philippa was furious at what was happening. In her anger, she said many things to the Duke about Nivea, but when the Duke asked her questions about the girls, she hesitated and apologized. But the Duke was furious. He drew his sword and began to communicate with them in a different way. The women were frightened and begged for forgiveness. Kneeling on their knees, they frantically shouted words of apology. They knew that for such transgressions, the Duke would not hesitate to kill them. Vivian woke up, seeing what was happening. She tearfully asked her father not to kill the maid and nanny. After all, they were the closest people to her, who brought her up from birth. The girl was ready to do anything as long as her father let them go. The Duke listened to her. He told Nivea that all the presents were hers and she must not give them back. The girl thanked her father and left the room. The Duke told Vivian that he would buy her twice as many presents so that she would not be upset about the presents. Nivea was walking to her room when suddenly she fell on her knees. She was tired of everything. She was mentally struggling. Nivea didn't know how to deal with everything. She just wanted a family and care from them. But the girls told herself not to wonder. Quietly, she stabbed a pin in her hair, stood up, and went to her chambers. When she entered the room, she saw Charlotte lying unconscious on the floor. Nivea wanted to rush to the maid and call for help, but she was taken by surprise by her brother, who was standing there, smiling smugly. Wood stood over her with a satisfied look. The boy was proud of what he had done. With his anger, he ordered Nivea to be beaten. The girl was struck and fell to the floor. He looked forward with trembling anticipation to the hour of massacring her. Wood ordered the maid to be locked up in one of the abandoned warehouses and the girl to be brought to the room so that he could converse with her. The young gentlemen were very nervous. They were afraid that someone might see. Wood assured them that everything would be all right and no one would see. Nivea was brought to one of the abandoned warehouses. Wood wanted to beat her up quickly so that no one would see her bruises. But then one of his servants said that a knight had been assigned to the boy and he had to hurry. Wood decided to deal with the knight first and then the girl. He said to lock her up and left. Philippa paced nervously around the room, not knowing what to do. The woman decided to frame Charlotte. She took the record book and wrote Charlotte's name in it and left the money and jewelry with the maid. She decided to go straight to the Duke with the evidence. But the Duke was away, and the butler was temporarily acting as his butler. Philippa told the butler everything, and he ordered the cook and Charlotte to be brought in. The cook was brought in, and the butler began to question him. After searching the cook and Charlotte, they found jewelry. The butler asked where Charlotte was. They looked for her and couldn't find her, just as they couldn't find Nivea. Philippa said that she might have hidden or run away. The butler pondered the situation. Just then, they shouted and said they had found Charlotte, but she was unconscious. The man said he found Charlotte locked in one of the storerooms. Philippa nervously said that the cook had decided to punish Charlotte, but the butler wanted to get to the bottom of it, as he thought the story was very murky. The butler told everything to the Duke. He was furious about everything that was happening in his house. He did not want any fuss about his family now, as he wanted to talk to the Empress about the girl. He frantically wanted the girl to be found. When Nivea woke up, she didn't realize where she was and what was going on. The girl sat up, calmed down, and remembered what Wood had done to her. She knew that she needed to get out of this place immediately, as she would not be able to handle the boy. She hadn't eaten in a long time, and her strength was running low. Nivea decided not to sit still. She started looking for a way out. The girl found a door, but it was forbidden. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't open it. The girl did not know what to do, but one thing she knew: she could not give up and stay in such a place. Nivea was in despair, as then she saw water on the floor. The girl pushed the box away. She saw the dog hole. The hole was small, but she had no choice. She had to climb in. Nivea managed to squeeze through, and she managed to get out. Wood walked towards Nivea and reflected on the fact that everyone had turned the house upside down looking for the girl. He wanted to get it over with immediately. Then he saw Nivea. She had managed to escape from the warehouse. He ordered the servant to catch her, as he didn't want to lose this chance to get even with her. The servant caught the girl, but she hit him with a pin and broke free. Wood was angry that the servant had let her get away. He had no intention of letting the girl escape. He used magic and caught her. Wood caught Nivea and pulled her close to him. He was frantic to get even. Wood wanted to use magic to cause her the pain and suffering she had caused him. Wood screamed at her that she was nothing and nobody, and even without a crumb of magic, he could hurt her. Nivea knew she could absorb all of the boy's power at a touch. She used his own power against him. She saved her own life. A loud explosion followed. The Duke saw it through the window. He quickly ran towards them. Duke realized that Wood had kept Nivea locked up and then used his magic on her, and he would have a mana surge. The boy was in serious condition. Nivea lay beside him. There were no abrasions on her. The Duke pondered the situation. He knew that something like this could not be hidden, and the culprit had to be found. He saw the girl's pin in the blood and realized that there was someone else with them. Wood's servant was brought to the Duke. He begged for forgiveness and said he was only following orders. The Duke said it was all his fault, and Wood went to save his sister. The Duke ordered the servant to be thrown into the dungeon. The Duke wanted to deal with the trouble personally, so that the rumors would not reach the Empress. These rumors could ruin and tarnish the honor and reputation of his family. He couldn't let that happen, as he had plans for the Emperor's family in the future. The servants whispered about what had happened to Charlotte. They were excited about what was happening and questioned Charlotte. She said that Philippa had stolen the money and that if they wanted proof, they should go to the cook and he would provide it. The Duke and the butler were discussing the situation with the theft of money. Suddenly, they heard a noise. They saw the servants who had come to inform them that Philippa had stolen the money directly. The Duke ordered Philippa to be searched and the cook to be questioned. Duke asked the doctor how Wood was feeling. The doctor said he'd be fine. But about magic, he should see a specialist. Wood came too. His father asked him how he was feeling and why he did what he did. Wood started to remember what had happened and said it was all because of Nivea. The Duke told his son to calm down and rest. The butler informs the Duke that Sir Spencer wishes to see him, on a matter of urgent business. The Duke said he'd see him later, but he was serious. He wanted to see him immediately. Sir Spencer came to the Duke and told him the most wonderful news. He could cure Vivian. The Duke was overjoyed at the news. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. He frantically wanted his daughter to be healthy. Sir Spencer, along with the Duke, went to see Vivian. Sir managed to help the girl and cured her. The Duke knew that his daughter could now become Empress. The Duke told Sir Spencer that he could receive a great title for his rescue, and he would be glad to help him in obtaining it. Edward Spencer said he wanted to see Nivea before he left. He also asked the Duke what he would do with the girl. The Duke was slow to answer, so Sir proposed to make her heir to the Duchy of Esselred. Sir said that such a move would benefit the family in the future. The Duke thought about the proposal. It seemed favorable to him, too. After the marriage of Wood and Nivea, he would acquire good connections and be very rich. Nivea woke up and saw that she was in her room. The girl was afraid that Wood had caused her to miss her escape. She called for the maid. Nivea thought Charlotte would come, but to her dismay, a new maid came. The maid told the girl what had happened to Nanny and her maid, and also told her that Wood did not remember anything. The girl was resting when suddenly she was told that Sir Spencer had come to see her. Sir Spencer told Nivea that he had cured her sister and was going with the Duke to the Empress. As he left, he told her to take care of herself. Nivea was surprised at such words. Thinking of escaping, she decided to take a little walk. She saw her pin. The girl thought she had lost it. While walking around the house, Nivea saw Vivian. She ran to Nivea and told her that she was completely cured. She was very happy and excited. She said that everything would be different from now on. Vivi said that since she was cured, Nivea did not need to fulfill the role of a princess now. Nivea agreed, saying that she is very worried about the nanny. She could be killed and no one would step up to defend her. Vivi was angry and said that she will definitely free her and no one will stop it. She ran with all her legs to order the release of Nanny. Nivea went to the laundromat and found Charlotte. She told the girl that she could help her leave her family and start her own business. Charlotte was pleased and grateful to Nivea. The girl said it was too early to be happy, and she was helping her since Charlotte had to do the work for her. Charlotte said she would do anything. Voodoo was informed that Charlotte wanted to come in to talk to him. He knew that this maid was Nivea. Wood didn't understand what she wanted. Wood wondered why Nivea had sent her to him. Still, he told her to come in. The girl came in and said that Nivea would keep quiet about what had happened, and that since his sister had been cured, Nivea would be placed in the care of another family. Nivea could be an equal to the young lord, and the Duke said he would arrange their marriage. But if the lord wants, it can be avoided. Wood was angry and shocked at what he heard. He couldn't believe that his father could do this to him. He wanted to know how he could avoid marrying Nivea. Suddenly, Nanny flew into their room. They were surprised to see her. She just walked in unceremoniously. She shouted at Charlotte. In a fit of rage, she attacked her and started to be. Wood ordered the nanny to be taken away to the dungeon where she belonged. The woman was shocked by what she heard. Wood told no one to listen to Vivi and not to let the nanny go under any circumstances. Wood ordered Charlotte to tell Charlotte further what he needed to do. He wanted to execute their plan and get rid of Nivi, but he also wanted to make some adjustments. He had already mentally thought of all the things he would do to her. Nivea wanted to sell all her gifts and asked the butler to do so. She said that she wanted to give a gift to the family on the occasion of Vivi's recovery. The butler said that he would do everything. Charlotte went back to Nivea and told her that she had done everything. Nivea gave her the money and said she had to go to cancel the contract and pay the fine, and then to leave and start her own business. She also told her where the best place for the business was. Nivea told Charlotte to never come back and live a quiet life. Nivea was coming down the stairs. Suddenly, she caught sight of Vivi and the nanny. The butler told the nanny to go back to the dungeon, but Vivi shouted that she was in charge, and so, as she said so, be it. The servant said that Wood was in charge in the house and they would listen to him. Nanny said that Vivi would soon become empress and they should listen to the girl. Nivea said that no one had officially announced her engagement yet, and gossip is not good, as it is punishable by punishment. The servants all fell silent, afraid to utter a word. The butler asked where Nivea was going. The girl said that she wanted to go shopping for presents. He said that he would immediately prepare a carriage for her. Suddenly, a maid came and said that the carriage was already waiting. Nivea heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly walked towards the exit. Nivea got out and saw who was waiting for her. She got into the carriage that the gentleman had so kindly provided, and they drove off. Nivea rode in the carriage and remembered her plan and what Charlotte had told Voodoo. He knew partly half of the plan. They stopped. Nivea knew that the mercenaries had already arrived. While they were having a conversation, the girl decided to take the opportunity to run away. She ran as she was suddenly attacked. Nivea was already very close, but she fell down. The girl told herself that she couldn't give up so easily. She struggled to get away. The mercenaries were furious that Wood didn't tell them the girl was a wizard. Wood yelled that if they let him go and killed her, he would pay them a lot of money. He didn't want to lose her as he was close to massacring her. The mercenary took Nivea and was about to kill her when the girl used her power, and there was a violent explosion. They didn't know she had the power, and they didn't expect it. The girl had planned it all out. Before she went with them, she touched Wood and took his power. Nivea woke up. She was glad she was still alive. She realized she was right where she wanted to be. Nivea wanted to, without wasting time, talk about her future life with Duke Esselred. She hoped for his kindness and understanding. Nivea flew towards the ground and contemplated death. She didn't want to die at all, since she had already achieved a lot in her escape, but she had no strength to get up. Suddenly, a young man picked it up and carried it away. She was grateful to the stranger. The girl saw on the table some gifts for her and also some medicine. Nivea was happy and grateful for this welcome. Nivea heard a noise. She went out and saw Count Theorvan Alvin. Nivea knew that he was a very mean and wasteful man who wanted to take the estate for himself and make his daughter his heir. Nivea approached him and said a polite hello. He was angry with the girl and didn't want her in the house. He didn't like the fact that she was so proficient in etiquette. He shouted at her and, grabbing her by the arm, began dragging her into a dark room to lock her up. Duke Esselred came in and intervened. The Duke intervened in their scuffle and protected the girl. His brother was shocked. He didn't expect this from the Duke. He didn't understand why he was protecting a commoner. The Count was furious and said that he would deal with her himself and left. Nivea thanked the Duke for intervening. She began to tell the story of her appearance. But the Duke interrupted her and said that she need not talk to him like that. She told the whole truth and said that he could take advantage of her. The Duke did not expect such a straightforward statement. He asked why he would adopt her, but the girl said that she would bring him good money and connections in the future. But unfortunately, he didn't care about money. The girl realized it in time and said that she could take care of the Count. The Duke looked at the girl intently. He was interested in how she wanted to get rid of the Count. Nivea said it's a secret and she can't roll. The Duke said she was too bold. He said he didn't need her services. On top of that, he said for her to leave. He touched her hair. Nivea decided to take the opportunity to stock up on magic, but she failed. The Duke realized what the girl wanted to do, but the young lady went ahead. She said that if he didn't like her hair, she could recolor it or cut it off. The Duke said that she would make a lot of trouble from her, so he would keep her alive, but she must leave. Nivea decided not to give up. She made some more arguments. After thinking about it, the Duke decided to stop her, told her to do what she wanted, but gave her a time limit of 1 year. After the deadline, she must leave the house. He disappeared, leaving the girl alone. She was she in the big house and thought about the difficult situation. Her thinking was interrupted by the arrival of a doctor. The doctor wanted to examine Nivea as she had many wounds on her body. The young lady met Minerva. While Minerva was doing the bandaging, Nivea asked her if she was the one who healed her. The young lady said that she had. Nivea thanked her profusely for that. The girl was embarrassed. After all the treatments, she left the girl. The Duke called a servant and told him to bring the Count back to the house. He also said that the girl would live in the house and should be watched as she had a murky past. He didn't understand why he had now met such a difficult girl. He had met her before, but it had been in passing. Walking through the house, the Duke saw not just a mansion, but a coffin in which he lives and cannot die. He wanted the happiness that was so out of his reach. Any gusts of tenderness or happy moments caused seizures. He knew he didn't have long to live. The Empress sat pondering Agnes's family. She frantically wanted to see Nivea. She knew that the Duke's adopted child was not so simple. She also knew of their uneasy relationship. The children in the family disliked the adopted girl, and everyone knew it. She had been informed that the Duke had arrived at the imperial palace, and she was frantic to chat with him and to find out more about all his children. She needed the information to use it for her own purposes. Duke Agnes and Edward Spencer arrived at the Emperor's house. They were discussing all matters. Suddenly, their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of the Empress. The Emperor told his wife that Edward Spencer had found a cure for an incurable disease. He had been given a new title for his achievements. They discussed the new title. The Duke also decided to discuss the engagement of his daughter to the prince. He also wanted to send his adopted daughter to Esselred's estates. The Empress realized what the Duke wanted to accomplish, so she suggested we move and talk about everything over a meal. The Duke and Edward Spencer were riding in a carriage and discussing the past. Suddenly, the carriage stopped. They didn't understand what was happening or why they were being disturbed. The Earl of Esselred's manor informed the Duke that his son was in the carriage, and he had trespassed and invaded the manor. The Count showed the corpses of the mercenaries as well as the contract written by Wood. The Duke was shocked. He never expected his son to do such a thing. The Duke realized that his son had overstepped his bounds. He realized that he and his family would be ruined. Such an act stigmatized his family. Duke began to blame his adopted daughter for the whole situation. He said that the girl had done this before, that she was just an unruly child. The Duke apologized for the whole situation and said he would pay compensation for the harm done, and he was giving up Nivea. The Count said he could have his son, and they will take care of the bodies. The Count walked to the Duke and thought about the girl. He was glad that the girl had brought them money. They needed it badly. But he was wary of the girl. He did not understand why they had treated her so harshly. The Earl said he did as the Lord commanded. The Duke said he would keep the girl for a year. He also added that he was well aware of Agnes's plans for his adopted daughter and native son. Nivea was asleep. The girl heard a pleasant smell and woke up. A beautiful woman came to visit her. That was Margarita Romanov. The girl fussed, but the woman said that it was unnecessary to behave according to etiquette. The girl was surprised and timidly introduced herself. Margarita brought hot soup. Nivea was very happy and didn't understand why women were so kind to her. Margarita promised that she would bring her chocolate cookies and milk. The girl thanked the woman sincerely. Nivea slept for half a day. When she woke up, she decided to take a walk and saw a cookie. Nivea decided to try them because she had never eaten one before. She liked the cookies very much, and she didn't notice how she ate all the cookies. Her hands were all dirty. She wanted to go wash her hands. She went to look for the bathroom to clean herself up. Nivea wandered through the deserted mansion. She was thinking of different things. Suddenly, she was interrupted by the Count. Nivea said she was looking for a towel to wipe her hands. The Count said he would take her to a room where she could clean herself up, since they had no maids. They went into the bathroom. The girl was washing her hands, and the Count thought that it must be very hard for her to do everything with such scratches. Nivea said she had done her business and could go to her room now. The Duke took a towel and wiped her face. Nivea confessed to him that she knew he didn't like her and knew she alarmed him. The girl thanked him for his kindness. She said that she did not claim to be the heir. She just wanted protection. After talking, they walked back. They reached the steps, and the Count took her in his arms, as he knew it was very hard for her to walk when her whole body was abrasions, and he decided to help her. As the Count carried Nivea in his arms, they met the doctor. She was puzzled. The Count said they had some business to attend to. Their conversation was interrupted by Margaret. She was carrying a tray of sandwiches. She suggested they all have tea. They all went to the room to drink tea. Nivea was very happy. She felt wonderful. She felt like this was her family. She asked if the Duke would come down to see them. She was told that he had a slightly different schedule. Nivea asked if she could go up to him to talk to him. She was told that if she went, she might hit a shield that wouldn't let her through. Nivea asked if she could write a letter to the Duke. Everyone was very happy as the Duke had never received a letter. They brought her everything she needed and showed her where to write the letter. The girl wrote the letter. The adults liked her neat handwriting very much. Nivea handed the letter to the Count. The Count said she could address him simply as Schlemmen. The girl wondered if it was possible to address him so informally. Schlemmen brought the letter to the Duke. The latter did not want to open it and told him to burn it altogether. But the Count took it and put it on the table. The man didn't want to open it, but curiosity got the better of him. He read it and wrote a reply. He called Schlemmen over and gave him the answer. The Duke sensed that his rebirth was approaching. Ethelred's ancestors had experimented on creating human weapons. Their experts had failed to bear fruit, and they had gone to extreme measures. They decided to use the power on the child that was in the womb. A man who was born with the power of the gods was the perfect weapon. The former Duke Ethelred married a woman with silver hair. They conceived a child with the power of other gods. The experiment was successful. Lark Ethelred was born, a powerful tool. He later learned that he had been subjected to mind control magic, but after several rebirths, he managed to get rid of the control. He wanted to save his mother, but she went mad from the magic of other gods. After numerous reincarnations, he realized that his mother could not be saved. Each time, his mother committed suicide. In addition to killing everyone in the Pomacite, burned all the documents. The Duke wanted to do good for the world. Everything was great at first, but then a traitor showed up. His assistant betrayed him. After all the events, Lark started to go crazy. He wanted to die, but he did not succeed. He was only reborn again and again. Lark knew he would soon be reborn, since his body could not withstand magic. And by the age of 31, he dies and is reborn as a boy of 8. Nivea received a letter from Duke. He called her to work for him. A messenger came to the Duke. He brought a letter from Duke Agnes. Nivea saw the letter being brought and said she wanted to talk to the Duke about it, as she had something to say to him about it. Nivea told all her new friends that she would never hurt them, and she wants to make a deal with the Duke. The girl knew how events would unfold. She proposed several variants of the denouement of the task, but all turned out to be such that she sacrifices herself. After listening to her, the Count said it wouldn't work. Nivea was in shock. She didn't know what she should do, but the Count said that she just needed to ask for help. It was unbearably difficult for Nivea because of her past lives. The girl gathered her strength and asked them to help her. The woman hugged the girl strongly and lovingly and told her they would help her. Nivea was very surprised to see the gentlemen cooking by themselves in the kitchen. The girl wanted to help them. She was given a task to do. They were eating in the kitchen. Nivian asked if the Duke would eat with them. Everyone hesitated, and the Count said that the Duke could not eat with them for his reasons. Nivea said that he was free to choose for himself. Minerva remembered that she wanted to give something to the girl. Nivea saw a marvelously beautiful dress. She was thrilled with what she saw. The girl thought her clothes were from a boutique. She thanked Minerva. The Count said he had to go shopping and asked the girl what she would like, but the young lady said she didn't want anything and thanked him. But he decided to buy her something sweet. Nivea tried on the dress. She liked it very much. The girl thanked Minerva sincerely. She was also given a beautiful hairdo. Nivea asked Margaret to give the Duke a letter. The woman dropped off the Duke's food and left the letter on the table. Nivea wrote that the gentleman still can't decide on a job for her. The girl asked him to choose a job for her. A reply was brought to the girl. The Duke appointed her as a hairdresser. Nivea was surprised. Minerva was just about to go to him and take the medicine to him, so the young lady decided to take the opportunity to give him the letter. The Duke read the letter. In it, Nivea asked him for such work as she could do often. The Duke handed over a reply. He was a bit harsh in the letter, saying that she should thank him for giving her something at least. Nivea thought about it and remembered her past life. The girl thought about his words and realized that he was right. She decided to write a reply and asked Mirwa to pass it on. Minerva quickly ran into the study, left the letter, and ran away. In it, the girl apologized and thanked him for pointing out her mistakes. After reading Margaret's letter, she decided that she needed to punish the Duke a little. Margaret and Minerva picked out clothes that fit the barber. The Count walked into them. He had already bought everything he needed and was free. When he heard what was going on, he said he would be first in line for a change. Nivea gave him a very nice hairstyle. Everyone liked the Count's new style very much. He paid her money for her work. After that, they all went to the kitchen together. Nivea tasted coffee for the first time. She didn't like it very much, as it tasted bitter, to reduce the bitterness in her mouth. She ate a lemon cake. She liked it very much. She asked if the Duke had a preference for food, but she only heard that he hadn't been eating well lately. Nivea asked if she could take over the kitchen for a while. The girl wanted to make the Duke some appetizers. Nivea baked a cake and asked the Count to take it to the Duke. The Count took it to the Duke, but he would not accept it and told her to take it back. The Count said the girl had given him a nice haircut. He left the cake on the table and left. The man was surprised when he tasted the pie. He hadn't had one of those in a long time. The girl had many talents. The Duke decided to go downstairs and take the pie to the kitchen. As he reached the kitchen, he heard laughter and merriment. They were all having a nice conversation. He didn't want to disturb them. He listened to them. In a fit of anger, he accidentally threw a plate. The Duke had always dreamed of happiness, but because of his peculiarity, he had forgotten about it. Duke Agnes came to a man to order the murder of a little girl. The man said that there were mages in the house who had been through the war, and that might complicate matters. The Duke assured him that he would be paid in full. The gentleman wished Nivea a good night's sleep, and she went to rest. She thought about their little family. She loved living with them. The girl fell asleep. Suddenly, a killer entered her room, but the girl was sleeping peacefully. The Duke was in her room and was able to stop the intruder and deal with him quietly. He sat on the edge of the bed and thought about the girl. Various thoughts crossed his mind, and he pushed them all away. The Duke remembered how he had met the young lady before his rebirth. Remembering the past events, the Duke did not notice the morning had come. Nivea woke up and did not realize what the Duke wanted in her room. He only said that the girl should get to her duties and not sleep late. They went down together to the office where Nivea was getting haircuts. The Duke said he wanted to change his hairstyle and cut his hair. Nivea hesitated a little, for he had been growing his hair for 9 years. The man took a pair of scissors and cut off a long strand. The girl realized he wasn't joking and set to work. The Empress descended into the dungeon. She wanted to know how the work on her perfect weapon was progressing. The Empress looked at the boy and thought that she was very lucky to know about the gift of foresight that Empress Estelle was hiding. The woman remembered how 8 years ago she had drunk poison to frame Duke Eltz and lost a child as a result. A woman kidnapped a child and kept it locked up in order to awaken the magic of foresight to use it for her own purposes. The maid thought she was being cruel because it was her husband's child. The Duke paid for the haircut with a gold coin. Nivea was delighted but said silver would have sufficed. He gazed at her and thought he could raise her like a daughter. A man wanted to know the joy of fatherhood. Suddenly he felt sick. Nivea asked if he was all right and wanted to come over, but the Duke told her not to come any closer and retired to his chambers. He was angry. Margaret came to him, and in a fit of anger he told her not to give the girl any work. Margaret came to Nivea and told her that the Duke had told her not to entrust her with anything. The girl realized that she had to sit quietly and keep her head down. Alvin came to the estate first thing in the morning. He brought 2 maids and said he had a daughter himself and knew how hard it was without maids. The Count said they didn't need them. Alwyn was very insistent. They quarreled. In a fit of anger, Alvin said a lot of things. Nehemiah decided to settle the conflict and accept his help. She was already thinking of ways to use the maids. Alvin left the servants and hurried away. The girl told Schliemann that she wanted to eat. He in turn realized that the girl was slowing something down and sent the maids to the kitchen. The girls were shocked, as they had only been told to pretend not to serve them. After they left, the girl asked the Count to buy her a coat and shoes. She gave him a gold coin. Schliemann said he had already bought everything and asked her to hide the money. Duke Agnes was furious that the mercenaries had failed to kill Nivea. He thought someone had helped her, but he didn't understand why or why not. To find out the details, he had to visit the Imperial Palace. Arriving at the Imperial Palace, everyone was a bit puzzled by the situation. The gentleman began to sort out the situation. The Empress was interested in their proceedings and was amazed that the Count was so fiercely defending the girl. The maids gathered food and carried it to the room. On the way, they talked at length about the house and the meager food. When they got to the room, they saw Nivea and Minerva. They were already eating. Nivea said they had been walking for a long time, so she found something to eat herself, but she told them to leave the food and she would have a snack before dinner. They were being a bit rude. Nivea paid no attention to it. Minerva said she would show them to their quarters. She took them into a room and showed them where they would be staying. She also added that they should keep their mouths shut inside and outside the house. They said they understood. Minerva was about to leave when she suddenly fell down. It was her foot which led to this situation. She fell and her glasses came off. One of the maids crushed the glasses. Minerva was desperate. Minerva sat on the floor in despair. Just as suddenly, Nivea came in. She picked her up and took her to Margaret. The girl asked Margaret to examine Minerva, saying that she had fallen. Minerva said that she was a bastard child and was used to being humiliated and beaten. She also said that the Duke had saved her by taking her home. Margaret hugged the girls tightly. The Count came in and told them that all the outfits would be brought in tomorrow. He told Nivea that she was right in saying that Theorvan would send a letter. The Duke said that the compensation would arrive at the manor soon. He also gave her a letter from Duke Agnes. Nivea read it, but learned nothing new to herself. The Duke, on the other hand, read it and was perplexed. He wondered how one could be such people. The man asked Nivian if she had a plan to protect their home. He said he would listen to her in everything so that she could help them. The maid went, telling all the news to her master that had taken place on the estate. The maids whispered and wondered what they could do for Nivea. They wanted to put a mouse in her bed, and yet they did as they had planned. The maids brought her food, and they wanted to help Nivea take a bath. The girl said she could do it herself, but the maids insisted. Minerva came in and rescued Nivea. The girl said it was time for a checkup. Margaret came in. She met the maids and told them that their master had come and he wanted to talk to them. Nivea and her friends saw a mouse in the bed. The girl realized that the maids had slipped it to her. She decided to punish them. The maids met their master, and he told them that guests were coming to the manor soon, and they should give them a grand welcome. And if all went well, they would take possession of the manor. The maids returned to the girl and saw her in bed. They did not know if she had seen their surprise. The girl said she wanted to get some sleep so they could be free. The maids left. As they walked down the corridor, they noticed shadows. Nivea applied the magic they had applied to them to her. They were so frightened that one of the maids ran from the manor with all their legs. Watching them, the girl realized that someone might have broken into her room. She took a pocket knife and decided to hide. During the night, assassins sneaked into Nivea's house. The Duke realized that someone was making another attempt on the child's life. He went downstairs, saw them, and killed them. Nivea attacked the Duke in the commotion. Later, she apologized and thanked him. The Duke said that the girl was a nuisance and asked her to stay out of his sight. Wood was very angry that it was not possible to kill Nivea. She had ruined his life and messed up his face, so he frantically wanted her dead. Nivea was brought new outfits. When she tried them on, she looked splendid. A maid came in and was asked why she was alone, but she said that her friend was ill and she decided that she should not come to the manor. Count Alwyn came in. He was furious because the girl was still alive. Alvin started a fight. He was told that he should not behave like that before the guests came. In a fit of anger, he said many unpleasant things and left. When everyone was gathered in the room, Nivian informed them about her idea, about the future work. Everyone liked very much what she had to say, but they knew it would take a lot of money. Nivian said that it was fashionable to make samples, and if someone liked it, then production could be started. They met the Duke and the teacher. The teacher said he wanted to test the girl's knowledge. Nivea approached Margaret and took her power, but said that the teacher is good and everything will be fine. The teacher told Nivea that he would help her become a mistress and have power over others. After thinking about his words and his behavior, Nivea did not like it. She decided to get rid of him. The girl finished her conversation and went downstairs. There she saw Wood. He was furious that she was alive. The boy was pointing a magic gun at her. He was screaming at her furiously. He was stopped. He didn't have time to do anything before the girl used magic. The girl was caught. The maid held her tightly, but Nivea managed to break free and ran away. As Nivea ran, Wood saw her. He decided not to waste a moment and aimed his weapon and fired. As always, the Duke intervened. He saved her. All the gentlemen came running to the noise. They realized that Wood had fired. Duke Agnes was shocked by his son's actions. He could only ask how he could make amends. The Duke said that he must give up custody of the girl. Duke Agnes was shocked. He said it wasn't that simple, but they made the magic pact and left in a hurry. Count Alwyn started shouting in his wake that Duke Esselred was to blame. The man was furious and chased Alwyn away from the house. Nivea woke up and saw that she was not in her room. She did not understand what was happening and why she was in another room. She asked to be told what had happened. Her new friends explained everything to her. They told her that the Duke had given up custody. Nivea was pleased, but also ineptly excited about what had happened. Nivea got a visit from Charlotte. The girl wanted to work for them. Charlotte said she wanted to pay her for her good. Nivea was persuaded to accept it. Everyone ate and welcomed Charlotte into their ranks with great joy. Nivea said she wanted to go to the Duke in person. Margaret asked her if she needed an escort, but the girl said she could manage on her own. She went to her chambers to get ready to go to the Duke. The girl changed her clothes and tidied up her hair. Nivea entered the Duke's chambers and started a conversation with him. She thought to herself that his chambers looked very gloomy. Nivea was talking to the Duke. She wanted to talk about her business, but he beat her to it, saying he already knew everything. He asked what else she wanted to ask. Nivea said what she wanted would leave Charlotte, who came to see her. Duke Esselred said she could do what she wanted, but her business he will check her business himself personally. Nivea was surprised. Nivea left the office. Margaret asked her how everything went. The girl said that everything was fine and she managed everything. Nivea said that she wanted to prepare dinner and bring it to the Duke. They prepared some exquisite dishes. Nivea said she will take the Duke some nibbles. Margaret said it would be difficult for her to take everything in, and she offered her help. The girl agreed to her proposal, and they went together to the Duke's house. The ladies brought the Duke some food. He was not pleased, but he decided to taste what they brought. The man said it was too salty and the food was sour, but he ate it all. The ladies left him satisfied. The Duke told the Earl to hire a bodyguard for Nivea, since there had been several assassination attempts. Nivea woke up very early and decided to make breakfast. She prepared the food and decided to drop it off to the Duke. Methinks for a bit she was in front of the door. Deciding to leave without going in, Nivea saw the Duke. He told her to come in. The girl wanted to sit on the chair, but it was too high. The Duke helped her by using magic. They sat down to eat at a table. Duke and Nivea ate and had a casual conversation. They were having fun. Duke liked this kind of atmosphere. He felt happy. Their cheerful conversation was interrupted by the Duke's attack of illness. He told Nivea to leave. The Duke didn't want her to see him like this. Nivea decided to go to the city. She wanted to benefit the Duke, and for that she needed information. Walking towards the store, she thought about all the problems and the solutions to them. Nivea found herself thinking. Unexpectedly for her, she was pushed. The girl saw a young man with the same blonde hair as her. The young man apologized and invited her to a coffee shop to make amends. Nivea was reluctant, but went with him nonetheless. She was heading there for information. He invited her to the office, telling her that the place belonged to him. They brought treats. The girl ate them all. She didn't know him. He had not appeared in her past lives. The shopkeeper asked Nivea what she needed in such a place. The girl decided not to beat around the bush for long and told him everything. She needed some information, and in return she offered information that interested the young gentleman very much. The master offered her a magical contract with him. They signed it, and Nivea left. When she went outside, she saw that it was raining heavily. Nivea wanted to go back to the store and ask for an umbrella. But before she could do anything, her new acquaintance came out with an umbrella and offered to walk her to her house. Duke sat and thought about Nivea. He wanted to see her. Asking Margaret where the girl was, he was furious. The Duke was afraid she had left him. He was frantic that she had left for good because of him. The Duke stood at the gate and waited for her. He was frantic to see her. He couldn't go outside the mansion. Magic wouldn't let him. Nivea returned. A new friend had given her a ride. She thanked him politely for his help and left. The girl saw the Duke. He was pale and all wet. The Duke apologized to her for his behavior. Nivea said it was all right, and he had nothing to apologize for. Unexpectedly to her, he collapsed and lost consciousness. The girl did not know what to do. She called for help. The young master summoned his servant Ricardo. He gave him an errand. The Lord wanted to know all about the girl and if what she said was true. Upon his return to his estate, the Lord learned that Duke Agnes was no longer Nivea's guardian. He was surprised at this turn of events. The Count visited the carver Ricardo and gave him an assignment from Nivea. The carver was greatly surprised that his mistress was Nivea. Nivea felt very badly for the Duke. She blamed herself for him being in such a terrible state. Margaret comforted her and reassured her. Charlotte brought breakfast to Nivea. The girl was worried about the Duke of Togo and didn't want to eat. Nivea quickly gathered herself and went to the Duke. She substituted for the ladies who had been watching him all night. She went to the Duke's room. The girls saw him and the condition he was in. Nivea nursed him for a while and left. Count Alvin and his daughter had arrived. From the moment they arrived, they were already out of sorts. Alwyn said to call Margaret immediately. Nivea said that the woman was resting, but he shouted that he wanted to see her immediately. To that, he insulted Nivea and started a quarrel with Earl Jenner. Nivea needed a cure for Duke, so she decided to play a little game with Alvin, doing things his way. Alvin sent Nivea to live in the servants' quarters. Nivea obediently went with him. He said it was a good place for someone like her, but his daughter deserved more. After listening to him, Nivea asked if she could go and get her things from the old room. Walking down the hall, the girl saw Charlotte. She said she had brought anesthesia. The girl didn't want anyone to see Charlotte. Nivea made her her shadow, and they went to get their things. The young mistress and her maids looked at Nivea with disdain and threw all her belongings into the hallway and stomped all over her. Nivea was furious, as those things meant a lot to her. Charlotte said that Nivea shouldn't leave it like that. Charlotte brought Nivea a blanket to keep her warm and warm. They went into the room and saw that all of Nivea's things had been cut up. Charlotte apologized to Nivea, but Nivea said that she had nothing to apologize for. There was nothing she could do. Nivea decided to get a little revenge on the girl and her maids for what they had done. Masha was walking along with the maids, and they were discussing the house and what they had done. Just as suddenly, they saw the mess in the closet and the cut-up dress. Masha was very angry. She knew who had done it. She screamed for Nivea to be found and brought to her. The maids said she was nowhere to be found and that she might be on the 3rd floor. Masha went to look for Nivea. She made a fuss over the search. Nivea was coming down from the 3rd floor. The girls started shouting why Nivea can enter there and she can't. Masha raised a shout, but Nivea managed to calm her down and she ran away. Nivea went to Masha's house. She wanted to talk to her. Masha sent her maids away and they were left alone. Nivea didn't bother with her. She wanted to explain to her in a clear way that she was overstepping her boundaries. Nivea used magic on her. Alvin arrived at the manor. He was furious and said that he would punish Nivea. Nivea was coming down the steps. Alvin saw her. In fury, he asked her why she could go to the 3rd floor, but she said that she was allowed by the Duke. Alvin was furious, and he hit her. Nivea didn't want to let him get away with it. She wanted to strike him down, but the Duke beat her to it. He almost killed him in a rage. But Nivea stopped him, as killing Alvin might have disrupted her plans. Alvin started talking about the inheritance and that his daughter was the most suitable to be the heir to the estate. The Duke said he would raise the heir himself and that he would adopt Nivea. Alvin was shocked at what he heard. He wished he could still find out about the relationship, so he wanted to see his daughter as the heiress. Alvin was summoned by a servant, saying he had a problem on his plantation. He left in a hurry. Nivea was surprised at what the Duke had said, but she was overjoyed. He said that now she would have his last name and a real family. Margaret saw her face and became furious. Charlotte said that they came all in knits, first put her in the storeroom, then cut her things and abrasions. Nivea apologized to Margaret for ruining her cloak. Margaret comforted the girl. The Duke heard everything that had been done to Nivea and became furious. He decided to wipe Alvin out. He wondered how such a fragile girl could endure so much.